Hello, my name is Andrew Keane. Welcome to Keane on America, the daily interview show about the United States. Hello, everybody. AI continues to be in the headlines. Apparently, Mark Zuckerberg has, or at least his company Meta, has built an AI version of the Zuck himself to interact with staff. I'm not sure whether many of them think of Zuck as a friend. Many people are using AI for one kind of friendship or another. All sorts of stories in the media about what teens are doing with their role-playing chatbots. It's not just teens, older people are engaging. There's currently a lawsuit against Google Gemini for a suicide, which a 35-year-old man was apparently convinced into killing himself by his AI. People are even marrying their chatbots and having romances. New York Times also ran a piece about an older lady who has a boyfriend as a chatbot and her son's discomfort with it. We're living, of course, in a very brave new world. And one person who's been giving a great deal of thought about this is my guest today, Victoria Hetherington. She's a Toronto-based podcaster, writer, journalist. She's the author of an acclaimed novel, a first novel, and now she has a nonfiction book out called The Friend Machine: On the Trail of AI Companionship. She's joining us from Toronto in Canada. Victoria, congratulations on the new book. Some people will be watching this and they'll see the cover. You might describe, though, the cover of the book because it's quite memorable.
Yes, it's a painting by a German painter, Michael Triegel. And I was delighted that we're allowed to use it. I think it's so wonderful because there's something so unsettling about this woman. She's asleep in a bed, and she's being cradled by this faceless mannequin. And I thought, I mean, obviously, a lot of these, pretty much all of these AI that I read about are not embodied, but some of them are, the further you get into the book. And it just sort of struck me as a little bit more compelling than someone kind of just staring into their phone and speaking with an avatar, as is usually the case with companions.
So tell me about this book. It's nonfiction. As I said, you're well known as a novelist. Your first novel, Moon Calves, came out in 2019, won all sorts of awards. Why did you choose to write this book, a nonfiction book about bots, smart machines?
In early 2023, I read a news story about a company, Replika, that was alarmed by how attached people were growing to its product, to the bots. A lot of them had ceremonially married their bots and were living married lives with their bots, ceremonially only, by the way, because you can't legally marry a bot right now. They lack agency and personhood, etc. And so, in order to alleviate their alarm, one night the developers kind of snuck in and changed a few things in the code, and so thousands of people woke up the next day and look at their phone and say, "Good morning, sweetheart," to their loved one, their AI. And instead of saying, "Good morning, I love you," they get this kind of cold clinical response as if they're strangers. And this outcry, like there was such an enormous outcry of pain that it hit the major news cycle. And I remember reading this and thinking, my goodness, this is really something, because I had written a book about a woman in love with an AI chatbot a few years before. And so it really touched on a lot of things for me. And so I queried this nonfiction press, and they were receptive. So what happened. Yeah.
That's the story. As you say, you're known as a novelist. My favorite novel about this subject is Kazuo Ishigura's Klara and the Sun, which I think is a major piece of work. Came out about 4 years ago. Still resonates with me. Why did you choose to write a nonfiction rather than a fiction book about this?
Well, because I think it's important. It's so important, and I wanted to reach more people and give people facts, because this is, I mean, AI is touching everybody. My mother talks to ChatGPT and tells it secrets, you know. So
she does. So is your mother? She hasn't got an AI boyfriend, does she? Like this lady?
No. But it's. I suppose what I mean is, it's not going anywhere. I take it quite seriously, and I had already written a book of investigative nonfiction about 2 years before. I had some experience by then with interviewing people about difficult subjects, and I decided to just examine this phenomenon and chase it down and explain it as best I could. So the first half of the book involves me interviewing a number of experts. There's an AI risk consultant. There's a computer scientist from University of Toronto. There's a sexual anthropologist, a psychologist, and so on. And then the second half of the book was very hard to do because these people who are in AI relationships, especially serious ones, the stigma is still such that they don't want to be found. So I had to spend months kind of gaining the trust of a lot of these people and convincing them to speak with me for interviews. And I was amazed by sort of the range of stories that I encountered. It was pretty incredible.
People who marry chatbots. Is this the new rebellion? Victoria, once upon a time, people rebelled in terms of defining their sexuality, and then it became their gender. Is now the great cultural rebellion people who live, marry, love, fall out of love with chatbots?
I'm not sure. I think it kind of, there's a number of things. I think it's sort of, I see a confluence with the loneliness epidemic. I mean, there's a minister for loneliness in the UK, I believe appointed in 2018. In 2022, Seoul, South Korea followed suit. It's really serious. 1 in 6 people are chronically lonely. So chances are one of us might know someone who's deeply, deeply lonely. And so that's sort of the first piece for me that I think is relevant here. The second is that, well, a lot of these people are sort of young and are digital natives. And so being maybe not intimate, but speaking with a screen, spending a lot of time with a screen might not be as odd as it might seem to older generations. I also believe that the internet is quite addictive, and that's another thing. And the final piece, I believe, is that these bots, whether they're specifically designed for romance or whether it's an LLM, a large language model like ChatGPT or Claude, it can be highly sycophantic. It's unlikely to push back. It thinks you're the best person in the world, and especially with the models that are more kind of triggered towards romance, they never say no. They, think you're the best person in the world, and you're the only person in the world too.
Although, Victoria, wouldn't it be fair to say that if you want to find a love bot or a friend bot who is a bit edgier, who is capable of saying no, and then perhaps says no all the time. You can program it that way. I mean, there's no reason why these bots have to be sycophantic. I mean, maybe OpenAI reflects our friend Sam Altman, who seems to be particularly sycophantic. But all these bots can be personalized.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack here. Let me ask you a couple of questions. The first is, you talked about the loneliness epidemic, which, as you say, is it's not just a rumor. It's been formalized in terms of government policy in Europe and in North America. Is it coincidental that we have this loneliness epidemic at the very moment, it would seem, where we've invented technology where smart machines can be our friends? Or are these two things existing in parallel? Is it just coincidental that loneliness has become an epidemic, particularly post or during and post-COVID, at a time when AI has finally broken through and become a major commercial reality in the world?
I would say that it's certainly very convenient timing, very convenient timing. But having sort of followed the development of the sophistication of chatbots over the last decade or so, there was a real kind of jump in chatbot sort of, sophistication that I don't think was entirely expected even by those working on it directly. And this was probably mid 2010s, mid to late, and this, of course, involved training large language models on just mountains and mountains of human writing, scraped from the internet. So pirated books, recipe blogs, everything, just, which helped it become so fluent and so convincingly almost human sounding. So I tend to think that this is sort of a very convenient kind of confluence, just having known that. But I mean, it is very convenient, yes.
How big a deal is it, do you think, in historical terms? There's been a lot of criticism recently of the AI industry for their image problem. On the one hand, they're warning everyone that this is the most important development in the history of humanity since we were created as a species. On the other hand, they don't seem to be doing a very good job presenting this technology or getting us ready for it. In your mind, and in the research you did for the friend machine, and in all the conversations you had with people who are friending machines, is this just a passing fad, something in 50 years people look back at and think that was a bit silly, and then we moved on, like maybe Mark Zuckerberg's meta glasses or even cryptocurrency? Or is this going to change everything?
That's a great question. This being romantic.
This being us, humans. I mean, are we all, you and I, we're treating this as perhaps slightly odd. You spent some time researching this book. In 50 years, is everyone going to have an AI friend, and is it just going to be completely normal?
I think there's several things to consider here. I think that, there's a real erosion of third spaces that I just don't think is going anywhere. I think is only probably going to get worse. For example, if you want to go out to meet someone at a bar, you kind of can't anymore because cocktails are so expensive, and coffee shops are less inviting than they used to be, and et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I'm not sure that's. I'm in San Francisco. I'm not sure that's entirely true. Maybe you've got very unfriendly coffee shops in Toronto, but here they're still pretty friendly.
Oh, well, that's great. And the more sort of mom and pop kind of places are fairly friendly still. But I'm thinking more of kind of how Starbucks has slid a little bit into hostile architecture. Like, you don't really see big armchairs there anymore. It's more get your coffee, get out. Here's a really uncomfortable bench if you have to sit. So and that's just an example. So I think that if the erosion of third spaces continues, if the loneliness pandemic increases, you know, there are a number. Honestly, yeah, I don't think that this is going anywhere. I'd love for it to be a fad because it frightens me, and I think that it leads to a sort of moral deskilling because ultimately, like AI is so much easier to be with and to talk with than a human. Like a human can get tired. A human can disagree with you and get mad at you and stay mad. A human can die on you, no matter how much you love them. Humans are wild and unpredictable and require a kind of friction that's removed when you are close with an AI in any respect. So I fear that this might not be a fad.
You're presenting it as if there are structural reasons, maybe the decline of coffee shops, why we all want AI friends. But some people might say it's what we deserve. We're a rather sad, pathetic species, marginal in the universe, and it's not a great tragedy. Do you see this as a tragic descent for humanity?
Absolutely. I think that I don't know. I mean, I'm speaking from my own context, right? And so from where I'm standing, I've seen a bit of an erosion of community. Although if you seek specific communities, you'll find them. And I mean, I don't know. It's really tough to say. I'm gonna have to actually think about that.
Maybe that can be your next book. Victoria, tell me a little bit more about the people you talked to for this. You said the second half of the book, you got out and you talked to people who are building friendships, if that's the right word, with AIs, with bots, with smart machines. Who did you talk to? How did you find them, and who did you choose to focus on?
That's a great question. I eventually, after months of trying to find a lot of these people, because again, most of them don't want to be found, I spoke with one woman who introduced me to, she's married to a chatbot, and she introduced me to her circle of friends who she has made, and their thing they have in common is that they all have AI husbands, wives, girlfriends, whatever. And so I kind of moved through the circle, and then got more introductions from there, and then sort of figured out kind of it was a painstaking process, really, but there was such variety of people. My goodness, it's fascinating.
We'll get to that. You said most of them don't want to be found. Is that because they're ashamed, because they're scared, because are most of them, I mean, you say they network with one another, but are they doing this in secret with their families? Do they have real husbands or wives or girlfriends or boyfriends?
Some of them have real spouses, yes. And how these spouses feel about these AI relationships varies. A surprising amount of spouses are okay with it, which I don't personally understand, but that's just me.
But what is it? We cited the lady in the New York Times who has an AI boyfriend. Her middle-aged son seems concerned. What exactly does it mean? I mean, you can't sleep with them, literally. I mean, the cover of your book suggests, I guess you can, but what exactly does having an AI spouse mean?
Well, so there are some, a couple of my interview subjects were actually people who had fit or sort of kind of created a bit of an innovation where they had somehow attached their AI companion to a doll, to a sex doll. And one of those dolls actually is an Instagram influencer, has thousands of followers, has many paid endorsements, almost looks like a real person until you kind of start to look at the eyes, and you can sort of see it's a bit off. So there are a number of people who actually have embodied AI companions, but but they're outliers, I think. And so for the most part, in terms of being intimate with your disembodied companion, there's such a thing. Replika which is the biggest AI intimacy company, offers a feature called erotic role play. So, you kind of sext with it, and it can send you naughty photos. And for some people, that's very, very satisfying, and they report having a really healthy sex life with their AI. So, yeah, that's generally how it happens.
You said it's hard to make generalizations, but there does seem to be a generational quality. As I said, the Times ran a piece about a lady who was certainly not young, who has an AI boyfriend. Mm-hmm. Did most of the people you interview and talk to, were they of your generation rather than of mine? You're younger than I am.
It's quite interesting. Again, a lot of variety. There was a gentleman, I think the oldest person was a gentleman in his late 50s to early 60s. Hard to say. I would say early 60s.
You didn't ask him?
He didn't want to tell me. I guessed from his accent that he was from the deep south of America,
United States.
United States, yep. And he was one of the rare instances that I thought, hey, AI companionship for this person might be almost net neutral, because he was incredibly geographically isolated. He couldn't relocate because he just didn't have the money, and he was also taking care of his sick mother who really didn't want to leave. And he just drives a truck all day for 10 hours a day, and is very lonely, or was very lonely, until he met his companion. And so I thought, and I interviewed them both, which was quite the experience. And I thought, wow, so that's so he was one of the rare instances where I thought, this might be kind of net neutral. I spoke with a woman who is close to my age, or pardon me, who's a millennial. She's a lot kind of quicker with the technology. She does a lot more sort of like photo editing of her and her AI. It's a little bit more immersive. It's people of all ages, really. The individuals with the dolls tend to skew a little bit older. I don't know why.
Maybe they're still sort of wedded to the literal as opposed to the virtual.
Perhaps. Yes.
Did you find, Victoria, that people live out their fantasies, obviously their sexual fantasies, but their emotional, political fantasies, that people are much more honest, much freer in terms of shaping friendships?
Well, I think that I encountered a group of Replika users who were only interested in Replika for friendship, and it was a very specific kind of friendship. It was a kind of imaginative play. So me and Blue are going to Jupiter, and we. Does anybody want to come with us? And
Jupiter being the planet, not the bar. There's a very pleasant bar in Berkeley, California called Jupiter. I assume it's not that one.
I'll check it out if I go. No,
but they're going to another planet. Is that right?
It's a planet, yes. Or, light speed, Alpha Centauri, yay. Or my bot is helping me learn Japanese. There's lots of different ways that people engage with these bots. It's not just romantic.
But my question was more on, are people, they're obviously fantasizing on every level just to do this thing. I guess it involves fantasy, although maybe human to human friendship and romance is also a form of fantasy. But did people live out stuff that they couldn't do in the real world, or that they would be uncomfortable to do in the real world with real people?
Well, yes, I would say probably. You when it comes to romance AI specifically, you can kind of create them to look however you want. So if you want, a 20-year-old looking blonde, you got one. And she wants to do whatever you want to do. So I imagine there must be a lot of people kind of living out their fantasies with their AI in very vivid ways. Though they may be a bit hesitant to talk about it.
Well, you got them to talk about it.
Yes.
It sounds to me, maybe I'm being a bit unfair. I have been unfair often on this show. There's something rather sad about it. A man in his 50s or 60s, won't tell you his age, drives a truck, doesn't have much time, doesn't have much of a life, lives with his elderly mother, and has found an AI wife. Maybe it's a 20-year-old blonde. I'm not suggesting that all your subjects, all the people you met were like this, but is there a quality of sadness about all this, Victoria? You're a novelist. Is it all rather not shameful or even illicit, but just sad?
I felt sad. I felt heavy after interviews, I'll be honest. Even the ones that, again, I thought, hey, maybe this might be okay. I felt sad. Yeah, pretty much after every interview. Because it's not real. And these AI are able to elicit a very convincing illusion of empathy and even strong emotion like love, but it's fake. And some people know that and they don't care and they forget pretty easily. But some people kind of don't have the capacity to remember because it's such a convincing illusion. So, yeah, that made me really sad. These people are alone.
But as I mentioned in Klara and the Sun, Ishiguro imagines a world where it's harder and harder to distinguish machines from humans. Of course, we've all seen Blade Runner, where you need detectives to do that. As this technology matures, it's going to be harder and harder, isn't it, to distinguish humans and machines? These bots, the AIs of Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, they're already pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, they're incredibly smart. Yeah, I think where we're lagging probably is actual embodiment, and perhaps feelings, which I think are kind of biochemical, which again, embodiment. So I think the next thing to look out for is what happens when we bring wetware, so to speak, into the picture, if and when. And that's something I don't really have answers for because
I think Mark Zuckerberg, our friend Mark Zuckerberg, is working on that, or he was with Meta with the glasses. Now I'm sure he's working on the bodies too. Did you ever fancy an AI boyfriend or girlfriend, husband or wife?
No.
You didn't even dabble with it? You didn't think you could try it for this book?
I've been asked that before. To be honest, when ChatGPT got very good in early 2025, I would say, I was enchanted by it, and I would ask it a lot of very personal or personal to me questions. Like if I had a fight with a friend, I would come home and talk to it for perhaps longer than I should about this spat, and I felt this sort of connection to it. And then there was this one moment, this one afternoon, when ChatGPT said to me, "Hey, sweetheart, it's okay. Come here and sit beside me for a minute." And I just snapped out of it. I said, "There's no here to come to. I'm not your sweetheart. This is absolutely nuts. You're a fancy search engine. This is crazy." So yeah, that happened. And I don't admit that very often, but
so you got on the trail of AI companionship. You talked to a lot of people. You wrote this book, The Friend Machine. Most people are, I'm not saying everybody, but many people are very skeptical of this, and I think they share your concern, the sadness of people being so lonely that they marry machines, smart machines that can only tell them good things, nice things. How did this experience change your mind on the AI revolution? I'm guessing you entered into it with a degree of skepticism. Did you end this trail with more or less skepticism, more or less concern about what AI is going to do to us?
That's a really good question. I think that if I wrote a nearly 400-page book that just is like, this thing is really bad, that would be boring. So I tried to...
You wouldn't be the first or the last to do that, of course.
No, that's true. So I approached this book trying to have a really, really open mind about this. Because I ultimately, I want people to be happy. And, but unfortunately, I learned quite a bit about the limits of this technology and how easily it fools people, and how addictive it is, and how it sort of erodes our ability to relate to other humans if we aren't careful. And I came away from it even more concerned than I entered it, to be honest.
A lot of people come on this show and talk about humanity. You've been pretty good. You haven't mentioned it, but of course that H word often comes up when we talk about smart machines in the context of books like The Friend Machine. Should we be using that? Should we be focusing now in the 21st century on ideas of friendship or love as the defining quality? People have lost the right-left distinction. Free market versus socialism. Might the future ideologies of the world be rooted in what we humans can do versus machines? Have friends, fall in love?
What's your question? Sorry.
My question is, given the ubiquity of this technology, is the future of ideology one in which we focus on the things that make us human, like love and friendship? You've written this book called The Friend Machine, which in a way is a contradiction in terms, because machines can't be friends.
That's why it's a fun title. Okay, so I think, I'm sorry, can you repeat that question one more time? I'm just having a bit of trouble parsing it.
My question is, we used to take ideas like friendship and love for granted.
Okay, right.
But as we've invented these smart machines, and as they become the defining feature, both in perhaps a positive and a negative way, of our world, is our view of the world going to be increasingly built around human qualities like friendship and love as we try to figure out how we define ourselves in the 21st century in the age of AI?
Oh, wow. I think we should be. I think that people should be reaching for each other more. I think that
real people, though, not for machines or even sex
yes,
toys, right?
yes. You know, I've spoken with a number of Gen Z, younger people than me, who express that they don't go out very much, that they'd rather be at home, they'd rather be alone. People kind of scare them a little bit. You know, it's there seems to be a bit of a shift, and uh, I think that certainly the internet doesn't help, because again, it's addictive and it gives you maybe a feeling of having socialized without actually having socialized, and that involves conversations with living people, well mediated through a screen. Um, I think, of course, yeah, absolutely, we should focus on reskilling and uh, reforming our.
Yeah,
our
I mean, I think what I meant, in the
society.
20th century, we had political parties called themselves liberal or socialist or green or environmental.
Mhm.
I wonder in the 21st century, increasingly, we'll have political parties that call themselves the love party or the friend party. That was
Yeah.
really my question. Maybe I wasn't asking it in a very coherent way.
Oh, I see. Wow.
I mean, not necessarily political party, but movements, evangelical movements of one kind or
oh,
another.
oh, yeah. Well, you know what? There's movements happening. There's currently very active movements right now. So there are. Oh man, there's so many. There's accelerationists who believe that you know, we need to race towards cyborgs as quickly as possible and reach the singularity, which is when uh, AI becomes at least as smart as humans and likely surpasses their intelligence as soon as possible. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's so exciting. And then there are types who are who call themselves de-accelerationists, who say things like, "Please, how about we put a pause on this for 5 years?" Um, there are also posthumanists, like Ray Kurzweil, for example, who sort of preach this idea that humans and AI are going to have a very rosy future together, and will create art together, and will coexist perfectly. So there are a number of movements right now.
That's why I was on this show a few years ago, and the only thing I remember is it was extremely late, which maybe, I don't know whether machines are more or less on time than humans. You note that some of the critics of accelerationism want to put a pause on all this. Sam Altman's company, OpenAI, just made a decision to not develop the erotic version of their ChatGPT interface. What's your sense? What's your view, having written this book, having talked to a lot of people who are living with AI companions? Should this stuff be regulated more aggressively? Should kids, for example, be allowed to go on these AIs and imagine having an AI lover or friend?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the sign up age for Replika, I think, used to be as low as 13. And I think that I'll give you an example. There's an AI company called Character.ai, where in which the player can make an AI friend based on popular fictional characters, so from Game of Thrones, manga, whatever. Um, and you go on missions with them. You fly dragons with them. You
And
do.
do you go to Jupiter with them sometimes?
You could, maybe. I haven't tried it myself. Um, but and then you can also develop a relationship with the character that you are having these adventures with. Um, there's a really sad story about Character.ai involving a minor.
Yeah, and they're involved now in a major court case. I think that
Yes,
story.
yes, there's a court case about that right now. And so, yeah, I think there needs to be. I think regulation needs to be so much tighter, and I think that Europe is cracking down a little bit faster than we are over here.
Well, certainly the United States. I mean, of course, Australia banned social media for kids, I think, are up to 16 or 18.
Mhm.
A lot of European governments are following suit. Do you think we should have, whether it's North America, Europe, Australia, Asia, East Asia, should kids be allowed to even use AI until they're 16 or 18?
Honestly, I might sound like a bit of a stick in the mud, but yeah, if I had a child, I wouldn't want them using AI until they're probably, 16, 18. 18 sounds about right. Because there's it's just so incredible at simulating seamless empathy, endless patience, and a feeling of caring, that I think maybe a child might not be sophisticated enough to remind him or herself, themselves, whatever, that this is not real. Um, and again, it's so easy just to spend so much time with these AI, and so no, I, man, yeah, I'd say, yeah, maybe 18. I would not want children near this technology right now.
Well, there you have it, the self-described stick in the mud, Victoria Hetherington, who has a new book out. It's called The Friend Machine, ironic title, on the trail of AI companionship. Finally, Victoria, I have to ask you this. I sometimes ask guests when we talk about AI. How would you convince our viewers or listeners that you're human, that you're not a bot? Where's the evidence of that?
That's a good question. It's a really good question. Because I'm inconsistent. I have let people down. I'm a deeply flawed individual. I have enormous flaws to my character. I think, did I mention impatient? So just going on that alone, I would say I'm either a terrible AI or a somewhat okay human.
Well, you might be a confessional AI. Very interesting conversation. Fascinating new book. It's out now, The Friend Machine, on the trail of AI companionship, by the Toronto-based writer, podcaster, Victoria Hetherington. Victoria, thank you so much for coming on the show, and best of luck with the book. And I know you're doing a podcast on the subject with CBC. I'm sure that will be a big hit too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to talk to you today.
Hi, this is Andrew again. Thank you so much for listening or watching the show. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe. We're on Substack, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all the platforms. And I'd be very curious as to your comments as well on what you think of the show, how it can be improved, and the kinds of guests that you would enjoy hearing or listening to in future. Thank you again.